So, Mr. Hales, how you feeling today, man?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good.
You know, I think, for one, I want to say I'm grateful for all the times that we've spent together and all the lessons that I've learned from you. But I don't know if the world necessarily knows everything that you do. So can you explain to the people what you do?
So yeah, great question. So Anthony Hales, for those who don't know my name, most of you should know my name. Company BAYNE LLC. BAYNE does a lot of things. I'm gonna make it kind of short. We're a consulting firm that primarily focuses on local and state government agencies. That's the bulk of our clientele. We're in a couple of spaces right now. I think our biggest space we're working a lot on events, like event management, but we also do research. We also do staffing. We do some communications work. We have a contract with drug testing, and we are a reseller. We just specialize in kind of providing needs for like state and local agencies. That has been our bread and butter. We work a little bit in the federal space, but like that kind of state and local, we understand that municipal kind of world space. So that's been a good place for us.
Okay, so now let me ask you this, because I hear about this a lot with people that's building their brands, building their businesses. So now I'm asking the same question to you. What problem were you trying to solve with creating BAYNE? Like, what problems did you see in the marketplace? Like, you know what? This is what my company's going to do. This is where I see the void, and this is where we're going to make our name.
Originally, we were working on creative. So originally, I was a graphic designer, and I noticed that a lot of agencies, public sector, they were operating in the 1990s playbook in the 2010s world at that point in time. So originally, we were just doing annual reports, flyers, presentations, things like that. But I also recognized when we were there in that space, like there were other skill sets that I had that could be sold to government. So to give you a little backstory, I was a full-time government employee at the Department of Education when I started my company. I was a research analyst, a data analyst that focused on student loan Title IV policy. So the obvious second place I went was research. So I understood like there's a lot of studies and things to get done on that. So I was working full-time doing research at work. So I started doing research for my clients. And then from there, someone once told me, until you reach $10 million, you are whatever your clients are willing to pay you to be. Right. So there was just
a bar right there.
I saw a lot of lanes and opportunities. So like everything that I knew we had in the skill set, not just with me, but like kind of my close network of people I associated with, people that I trusted. I found a way to start adding to my website and started selling services, and clients started buying.
Come on now. So I'm glad you just made that quote about the 10 million, because now we're going to start getting into the finance side of it. But before we get there, what was the first real win that gave you the confidence to keep going?
So there was a series of wins. So I just go into like the numbers, right? The first year I started my company, I think I made $15,000, right?
Okay, that's a good start for sure.
I work harder. I promise you, I work harder for that 15,000 than I ever worked in my life. It was just me doing everything. It was a lot. The second year, and that was just off kind of just hustle, pick up projects here and there. The second year, we picked up one or two bigger clients. Like I say, big, like in that aspect, it was big, right?
Okay.
When you're doing $500 logos, $5,000 project or $10,000 project is huge. So the second year, we did $85,000. Actually, had a client, we helped plan a conference in Boston, and so they paid me to come out, go to Boston, and just kind of oversee stuff. And that was a really good experience for me. And then from there, we were doing 115, 200,000. And we had picked up a couple of small agencies just doing work. One point I was working with an agency promoting internet access. There was a program where Comcast was giving free internet access to people who lived in public housing. So I had a contract. I would go and hire these guys to just walk around and pass out flyers to see if people wanted to sign up for that. So once the revenue started increasing and I was making more from my outside activities than I was in my day job, like the thoughts in my head start saying, hey, I should be able to do this full time. And you just start seeing other people. I mean, there was other people, we all kind of started our business at the same time.
Yeah.
And they also had full-time jobs. and they, some of them were starting to leave. And so now I'm at work and I'm looking at them, and they're living life differently. And even to the point, I remember I used to go to the chiropractor. I used to leave work on my lunch break, go to the chiropractor.
Okay.
And there was a coffee shop across the street. This is before the age of like teleworkers everywhere. And I remember just sitting there like, these people are living an entirely different life than I'm living right now.
Definitely.
I can do this. And so for me, those type of moments, a person say, hey, this is something I can do full time. I'm ready to be fully in control of my schedule in life.
Okay. So no. Now that's a big deal. So now let me ask you this question right here. People hear first million and think it's an overnight success. What did that actually look like behind the scenes generating your first $1 million as a company?
The first time I hit $1 million as a company, I would tell you this, and I say this for you, unless you're like real estate agent or something where you just get like a couple big sales wins where you can do solo.
Okay.
Like the first $1 million is you have to have some resemblance of a team. So the first $1 million was a couple employees, myself, and being willing to go after bigger contracts and stretch yourself. Right? When there's 15, 16, $20,000 projects you can complete on your own, when you're looking at 100,000, 200,000 here and there, it's the start into having to figure out how to assemble teams. For me, that was the first thing I had to learn was, all right, now I need to figure out how to assemble teams, how to work with other people, and how to lead a team. And it's similar to sports, right? Like you can only go so far solo. For that, that's that aspect. And also, I would say the first $1 million requires you to really look at revenue and be very intentional about where you're going after revenue. And it's also probably going to require you to give up some smaller projects and gamble on, I'm not going to bog my time down here because I need to free time up to go after stuff over here. And you'll start realizing there's some stuff. And I say this, a $15,000 project and a $200,000 project often may have the same amount of work. One's just a bigger project, bigger numbers. But as far as the amount of like actual footwork, effort it takes to put in to manage a $15,000 project, the $200,000 project, the amount of work isn't necessarily different. What's different is just about really understanding like numbers and capital.
So, being that you just said a $15,000 project and a $200,000 project can essentially have the same work, does it change at all at a $500,000 project, or like does the kind of scale kind of stay the same?
Work-wise, more people. When you have bigger projects, I would say that sometimes there's more people, more vendors to manage. So I'm not gonna say the aspect it completely stays the same. I think the biggest thing at that point, once you start getting larger projects, especially as a small company, things start to matter such as cash flow and access to capital. And now you have to play the banking game. Either you've got money saved up that you're working with, or now you have to start understanding capital, access, lines of credit, bank. And you may have more than one in understanding financing and being able to run numbers and justify numbers and deal with the entire banking apparatus. And that is a different skill set. Okay. So now let me ask this question. Being that you've seen the scale of a job, whether it was the first 15,000, 200,000 to the millions, for somebody that is just getting started out on their business, and let's say they're starting their own business, but they're still working their 9 to 5, would you tell them that after their $15,000 project, they could quit? Like, what do you think that number threshold should be as a company where you could go, I could focus on this full time? I think the first thing is how much money do you have saved up? The first thing I did, I went to a financial advisor and I just said, look, I'm looking at quitting my job. Mm-hmm. How much money do I need to have in savings before I go? I also had a wife and kid. So we went through like our annual expenses. Yeah. And I said, I want to be able to pay our bills for a year, regardless if the company makes money or not. Because I have faith that like if things go wrong within a year, which, this was pre-pandemic, so maybe you need 2 years now. Yeah. Within a year, I should be able to find another job. So for me, the first thing was I understood, okay, how much money do I have saved up? The second thing I did was look at, okay, how much money does it cost me to be me? And really going through my expenses, what are necessary costs, like how much money do I need? And how much money do I want? Like, there's things I need, and there are things that I may not need, but they're important to me.
For sure.
Like, I like to travel, so I need a vacation budget.
For sure.
It's not necessarily, but I personally need a vacation
budget. That matters for mental health, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, you need that time.
Yeah, it is. So for
sure.
me, I looked at that number and I was saying, okay, as a business, I need to be able to reach these numbers in profit to justify not going back to work. And that number was always at the top of my head. Like, I need to reach this number. And that still exists in a certain way, not in that same aspect. Like, I don't worry about going out of business in 2 months or 3 months now. Aspect of, I know my overhead costs for like me and my staff. So I understand, like, when I'm kind of doing my year projections, like, there is a certain number of revenue, like profit, I need to get to cover my operating costs as a company and to ensure that everyone I employ is able to maintain employment. So even now, when I start forecasting out, my first thing I map out every year is, how do I get to that first number? Like, or how close am I?
Yeah,
like some stuff. Now we're at the point where we do have some reoccurring, like we have some repeat customers and we have some longer term contracts. So there's like a baseline I start at every year. Then there's a certain number, like, I need to shoot revenue goals to reach in. That's why for me, my first quarter is always heavy BD, because by the end of March, I always want to be able to look and say, okay, regardless of anything else come in, I have enough revenue and profit to cover my operating expenses so the business can continue into the next year.
Okay, so it's like a lot of rainy day checks.
Yeah, so
making sure we got time.
Yeah, now everything after, because once you get to that point as a company, now you're like, this is just, it's a small business. And once I get to that point, now we can be a little bit more selective. Okay, what's worth our time adding on?
Yeah.
Right. Based on what we're doing, what can I add to the workload? Internally what I have, or through partners or through vendors, or bringing additional people on that makes it worth the day, worth my time.
Okay, so now for the next topic, man, I want to get into market disruptions and pressure moments. So, easy question. How do you stay so calm when the stakes are high?
This big thing with market disruptions, just in general, when stakes are high, understanding, it's like sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
You learn very early in sports, right, that it's always about the next at-bat. It's about the next game. You have a terrible game, you forget it, and you focus on next week. You go back and watch your film once or twice, you coach, but you move forward. So for me, I'm always looking at what's going on. So, to get a little inside baseball, right, we understand that in 2025, we saw a lot of cuts, the Doge cuts, right?
Yeah, good point.
That cut in DC, it hit two ways, right? So you get federal funding cut that funds local programs, but you also get a large portion of the workforce that falls off. So you understand that will impact taxes, which will impact revenues, which will impact the city's budget. So if our primary customer is now seeing drastic budget reductions, then for me, I have to look at like my business and see, okay, the things we do with them, if budget cuts start happening, impacting, which of the services I provide are most likely to get cut? And how do I ensure that? Do I focus more effort to try to just keep the client happy?
Okay.
Or do I just recognize that something is probably going to be cut and look at how to replace that revenue?
Yeah.
Or, is it some way around to work around that? And again, it's not exact science. It's no guarantee. When we first got the budget cuts, I thought a lot of our front-facing work would get cut. But that's actually what didn't get cut. It was actually a lot of the admin back office stuff, which a lot of that is probably going to get lost to AI anyway. So customer and client experience became a much bigger driver, a much bigger focus point. So for us internally, like just in the last year or two, I've seen kind of if the categories our revenues come through, I've seen that drastically shift from one area to another based on what happened in the market. I've always told you one of my favorite books is Only the Paranoid Survive. One of my favorite business books of all time. And it talks about inflection points for companies, right? Strategic inflection points. And essentially is, as a business owner, you have to always be aware of threats to your business. Not to the point of that you become so over concerned that you can't make a move, but also enough aware that when something happens, you've already thought about it.
Okay, so I'm glad you just brought that up because my next question, it flows right into it. What separates companies that survive disruption from the ones that don't?
Flexibility and ability, innovation, flexibility, and those who are aware. So companies
I never heard awareness before.
aware of like what's going on in the market. And if you're out of touch and you are not aware of like things that are hitting your market, you will. That's a quick way for you to go out of business. If you don't understand how public perception, how society is moving, it's a quick way to go out. And if you're not flexible. So during the pandemic, I mentioned we are going into the pandemic. We are a communications firm, pretty much at that point. Communications and a little events. We maybe did, let's say research, right? A lot of that stuff goes away. We have to figure out, okay, where are new business opportunities? I was already working with some suppliers on other things. They were sending us just goods and services for some of the other projects we're working on.
Yeah.
So I just reached out one day like, hey, do you have masks? Because one of the companies emailed me and it's like, hey, we have bulk masks from Hong Kong. So I was like, hey, what's the price point? So they gave me a price point. So and another client, they were looking for suppliers for a hotel brand. It was Kimpton. Like I say, it's Kimpton Hotels at the time. So we were able to just buy and resell to Kimpton. So in that first year, we sold $187,000 worth of masks to Kimpton off of simply having a conversation and saying, hey, here's an opportunity for us to adjust. This is not what we do, but due to market disruptions, this is a space for us to go into, but it's not something to be permanent. I didn't build infrastructure around that. I also recognized and understood this is a temporary market. Like once this is over, we will go back to our normal operating, but I need to find something to kind of replace the revenue we are losing during the pandemic. And I think during the pandemic, we saw a lot of people make a lot of money during the pandemic. The people who were innovative and people who were able to change their business operations and identify opportunities, during the pandemic, we saw a lot of people make a lot of money.
I believe it. Okay, so in the instances, we're talking about market disruption, seeing a forecast. Something that I'm noticing that we haven't really spoken about yet was the world or the network, of like, how are you learning about these market disruptions and things like that? So now I want to speak about just relationships in general and the importance of relationships. So with that being said, my next question is, can you talk about one relationship in specific that changed the trajectory of BAYNE?
Yes, I talk about relationship. There was an agency director we did some work for. We did a research project. He was dealing with transportation, taxis. So it used to be taxi cab commission. It became for hire vehicles. We did some research over there. While working with him, someone who was over a major conference was looking for a speaker.
Okay.
So we were already working with him in one capacity. So I recommended him to speak at this large event. And he loved the spotlight. So much to the point that he went to another agency, a large agency with a much bigger budget. They were looking to replace the software, their operating system. And he wanted to go find another software. So part of you understand district government, DC government's more inside baseball. They're really big local contracting requirements. So the easiest way for him to get this in was to use a local company as a reseller. So this is a brand new to market company, so they don't have resale agreements.
Yeah.
So he gives them our name. They reach out to me. We do a reseller agreement. We then sell the software to this agency. I think at that point, their first contract was maybe $500,000 worth of software, and we get a 12% commission. So then the license, the amount of seats they were buying each year was growing. The agency then splits into two agencies. So now we go from servicing one agency to two agencies, and you're looking at what started as a $500,000 contract now becomes a $800,000, $900,000 contract, and you're looking at commissions now for $100,000. So because of that relationship, over the next 6-7 years, we were able to do at least $5 to $6 million in revenue that we didn't necessarily earn. It was handed to us.
See, so now for the final question of today's episode. When I think about relationships as a whole, right, you think about that space between like genuine relationships and strategic relationships. As a business owner, as somebody that's seen success in what I would think is a pretty quick pace for sure. When you think of business relationships, do you think it's like 50-50 genuine versus strategic? Is it 70-30? Like what are you thinking? Like, are you more so like, like prime example, if you had like, if like, let me build this relationship with this person because it's like, I know this person can help me. Or is it like, does it feel better to be like, man, we personally know each other and like, how do we just grow together that way? Like, what's the best way to go about genuine relationships and strategic relationships?
I mean, genuine relationships, in my opinion, are always going to be better long term. When you genuinely enjoy being around someone, talking to someone, you're able to laugh and go hang out, maybe go on vacation together. Those are always better. And if there are hiccups in the process, had genuine relationships, we've done business and the business didn't go well, and we were still able to move forward. When it's a strategic relationship or a relationship of convenience, it's only as good as the deal. But once the deal goes bad, once you lose somebody, once someone doesn't deliver, those go quick. It's not to say that strategic relationships do not have their place. Like, there are strategic relationships where like people I talk to intentionally because I need to maintain a line of communication.
Yeah, it is what it is.
I'm sure people have those with me, but I also understand that there is a limit to that. And building genuine relationships long term, in my opinion, will always be better and more fruitful. Because again, if you enjoy spending time with someone, you can spend time, and we're not always spending time just to talk business. Like, it's not always about the next deal. When I call you and you know that the moment I'm calling you is because I want something, you're less likely to answer the phone. I mean, I probably gotta call you 10 times. I know with me. I know with me personally. If there's someone I know, if they're calling me, if they're about to ask for something, I really take my time on whether or not I'm going to answer that call.
For sure.
Now, if it's a genuine relationship, even if I feel like they're going to ask you for something, I'm going to have the conversation. I just like, I can't do that. Or let's talk about it later. But there's like, if it's a mutual relationship, genuine relationship, then that's different. But I mean, we all got people who we know finna call us.
For sure.
Hey, it's Anthony Hales. Got my brother Mason Taylor here with me. Great episode today. We'll keep bringing you more and more content, just building out. Looking forward to really getting to discussion and just talking about business strategy, small business strategy, adopting, and then basically how to actually reach a sustainable level of success. This is it, the Legacy Hustle.